Did you ever wonder what America would look like if there was no federal government safety net? Well, today I'm going to give you the answer to that. Over the past several decades, the federal government has given us one federal program after another. Of course, it's always for our own good because the premise is we need the federal government's help, even if we don't. We've all heard Obama drone on and on about how it's government investing that makes America stronger. Of course, investing is just government code speak for spending, because investing sounds so much more acceptable than spending when you've ran up a $16 trillion debt and show no sign of slowing down. Well, what if this federal government safety net had never been created? What if we'd been able to keep all that money we'd earned over these years to take care of ourselves instead of empowering the federal government to take care of us with our own money, I might add? Well, if the federal safety net didn't exist, would there really be throngs of people starving and dying in the streets as the liberals would have you think? For the answer to how things would be, we just have to look at how things were. How were they before the safety net? In years past, people took care of their own families. They didn't expect someone else to do it. Families had mothers and they even had fathers who provided for their own. What a novel concept. When government assumes a role that we perform for ourselves, it's human nature to stop performing that role and become dependent upon government. An able-bodied person who spends his entire life confined to a wheelchair eventually will become unable to walk without assistance. In years past, unlike today, we made it just fine without government's help. But now, because of decades of pervasive government interference in our lives, the face of America has been dramatically changed. Our entire culture has been weakened because of government. Obama, you're wrong. It's not government that made America strong. It was less government that allowed us to be strong. This entitlement mentality is destroying the very fabric that once made America great. It's rare to see extended families living together anymore, but common to see long lines queued up for government housing, food stamps, and other government handouts. Before this government safety net was foisted upon us, we had another kind of safety net that was in place. One that had been developed throughout centuries and even millennium. It was called families, churches, and communities. If your barn or your cabin burned down, the community rallied together and had a barn raising or a cabin raising, and everyone worked together to rebuild that structure. Unlike nowadays, no one needed to call on the government to help them, and no one even thought about doing so. It was ingrained in our society to come together in times of trouble and work as a community to help each other. Churches had food for those on hard times. Families opened their doors to those in need. Neighbors helped neighbors, and Americans had their own pride, ingenuity, and grit. People stood on their own 2 feet because that's all they knew. They had their hand on a plow, or a hoe, or a tool of the trade, and that hand was never extended for a government handout. Uncle Sam, please don't help us anymore.